editing revisions can take a video from a couple day deadline to taking up an entire week because of the back and forth. So in this video, I'm going to give you the 6 strategies that I use to minimize how long revisions take me. I used to get hundreds of revisions per video, and now I barely get any. Number 1 is we need to go through the 4-stage checking process in order to minimize the number of revisions. There's a saying by Benjamin Franklin: an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We would rather prevent an issue rather than let it happen and then we have to go and solve it. Now, what does this look like in editing? Well, how about you don't spend the back and forth that you have to spend with your client, which can sometimes take days at a time, but instead you spend less time checking it before you even gave it in the first place. So the way I slightly change this quote is an hour of checks saves a day of revisions. But the 4 specific steps that you use to check the video is going to determine whether you're checking it for the sake of it or whether you're actually preventing mistakes and saving hours on the revisions process. Stage 1, I check it in editor mode. Editor mode is the mode me and you are always in. Because we're quite technical when we're looking at the edit, we're going to notice things like, hey, that animation's slightly out of whack, or those colors don't really go together. When you're watching in editor mode, you're looking at those technical details and asking yourself, what can you fix? This is what separates even like the lowest tier of editors from at least the good ones, because the terrible editors, they wouldn't even check for mistakes that they've left in. They'll let the client bring it up. But if you're a decent enough editor, which of course you are, then we're going to check for these technical mistakes. But it's the other 3 stages that me and you are going to heavily benefit from. Once we've gone through the video checking it in editor mode for technical mistakes and fixed those, we're then going to hide all of the video tracks and just listen to the audio. The reason being, we're going to be listening for, are all the lines making sense? Are there any points where we feel confused on what's actually going on? Are there points where there's a line that's just kind of repeated? Maybe it's not repeated in the literal sense, where the line's said again, but perhaps the meaning is said again. For example, hey, we need to go to the park. If we don't go to the park, it's going to be really bad. Those 2 lines mean the exact same thing. By removing one of them, you get the same message across, hey, we need to go to the park, in a lot less words, meaning you're going to have better retention. So by listening to it with just audio, you'll notice things like that. Another benefit of this audio mode that you're going to be checking through it in is you're going to notice sound levels being off a lot more easily than if you were watching it normally. You could close your eyes, you could hide the tracks, but ultimately, you're listening. Is everything clear enough from an audio perspective? You would be surprised how many viewers watch videos when it's just playing in the background on the TV, or just on their phone while they're in the shower, or just having breakfast, barely looking at the screen. So audio is incredibly important, and you won't notice if you've leveled your audio correctly or incorrectly unless you remove the visual stimuli. So once we've checked it in audio mode, we then go into the next mode, which I call baby mode. Why is it called baby mode? Good question. By the way, you can turn the video tracks back on now. The reason I call it baby mode is you're going to go through anywhere in the video that you've added text, and you're going to read it like an absolute baby. So let's say it said, I can see on my script here, 4-stage checking process. I'm not going to check it like 4-stage checking process. I'm going to check it like this. 4-stage checking process. I'm literally checking every single letter. Why? Because you may have seen this optical illusion where essentially you can find it online yourself, but where there's like a paragraph and they keep the first and last letter of each word the same, but they jumble up any of the letters that are in the middle of a word. In a weird way, you can read the paragraph just as quickly as if all the words were correct, because the human brain can actually fill in the gaps very well. And this is amazing for our day-to-day lives, but the problem is when you're checking a video, you do not want to just glaze over mistakes. So by putting yourself into baby mode, where it sounds weird, but you read it like a baby, every single word, you're going to spend a lot of time looking through the video, but it's a lot less time than giving in the video, realizing there's one letter that you messed up and the client wants it fixed, and now it took a day to wait for the revisions, and the second day you rendered it out. You wasted 2 days for something that would have taken you 20-30 minutes to fix. The last mode, and this is arguably the most important, is viewer mode. when me and you are editing a video and checking it back, we have context on what's coming up. And especially because we're in the editing software, where it's so easy for us to just quickly go back, we forget that for the viewer, they're not going to go back in the video if they're confused. So what viewer mode is you go back onto the video right at the beginning, and I actually recommend go for a little walk. Get off your desk, forget about the video completely, then sit back down at your desk and watch the video. Put it full screen and just watch. Normal speed, you're not allowed to click around. And if there's any points where you're like, okay, this part is kind of boring, or hey, this line didn't make sense, like what's even going on? There's a bit of confusion. If you as the editor, who does actually have the context in your mind, is feeling even slightly confused in the video, the viewer, who hasn't watched the video 100 times like you, is not going to have a chance at understanding the video. So it's really important that you need to go through the video almost as if you have never seen it before. Don't watch it expecting a change or expecting an animation or expecting what is about to happen in the story. Just watch it as the viewer, and if there's any issues that you feel that a viewer would have, go in and change it. Because once you've gone through that 4-stage checking process, you will have solved most of the issues that could come up in revisions. The second way that I'm reducing the amount of revisions that I have is you actually want to leverage psychology within your file naming system. Let me explain what I mean. The London Underground, which is basically the train network in the UK, they wanted to maximize the user satisfaction. So how happy people were taking the trains. Now there's multiple ways they could do this. They could make the trains faster, which would cost billions of dollars. They could give people, they could make, I don't know, like I'm not a train person. Like you get my point. There's different ways of making people happier. But the most effective method of making users of these trains more satisfied, it wasn't by actually making the trains faster. It was those timer boards that tell someone when the next train is coming. Because here's the thing. When people know how long they have to wait, they actually have a higher tolerance of how long they're willing to wait. For example, if there was no timer board and you're waiting for a train, you might be willing to wait 2, 3, 4 minutes, and you start getting mad about 10 minutes in, you're wondering how much longer am I going to have to wait. But if you saw on the train timer board, hey, it's going to be 11 minutes, you wouldn't be as mad, like, because you have absolute certainty of when it's coming. So here's a situation where they only had to spend a couple of $1 million compared to billions of dollars in order to get an even bigger effect on on user satisfaction. When it comes to your clients, you can increase client satisfaction, yes, by making the video better, but that takes more time. One of the easiest ways for you to get less revisions is actually a more psychological technique, just like that, those timer boards. By you naming the final video that you give in, when I say final, I mean the first version. By you naming it final, you actually prompted a person to want to give less revisions. Because I want to ask you this. Let's say I gave you a video in, and it's the final video, it's completed, but I call it V1. That begs the question, or begs the existence of a V2. For example, if I told you, and I called you up and I said, hey, and imagine I called you up and you asked, hey, where are we going? And I said, yeah, we're going to go to the park first. That is going to make you assume that we're going somewhere after. So if I just said, hey, we're going to the park, now you're not going to assume that we're going anywhere else. Maybe we would, but it's not assumed. So the way you actually use file names as a psychological leverage to get less revisions, you call it final basically every single time. There's other methods you can use, but it's the principle that matters. For example, rather than you handing it in on frame.io straight away, why not hand it in on Google Drive or Dropbox first, and then if they ask for revisions, then you take it to frame. It's small things like that. Third of all, and now this is the point where we talk about actually completing the revisions as effectively as possible. Before it was more prevention. We want to complete revision rounds backwards. And it sounds counterintuitive, but what you want to do, what you will realize is as you're completing revisions, the timestamps will completely go off. For example, let's say you have like a note at 2 minutes in saying, hey, can you cut from this section to this section? And at 10 minutes, they gave a note for you to add in this animation. If you complete the cut revision first, meaning you cut from 2 to 3 minutes, that 10-minute timestamped revision note has now moved to 9 minutes, which is really annoying because it says 10 minutes on the revision notes, but you have to go in the timeline and see it's at 9 minutes. It gets really confusing. And especially as you get more and more revision notes, the effect gets worse and worse. So it gets really hard to manage all of this. The solution is, once you've gotten the revisions, read all of them quickly, just so you have context in your mind. But when it comes to implementation, implement them backwards. So start with the last one that you can start with and fix that. Then the second last, then the third last, then the fourth last, and then work your way to the beginning. Because let's say you make a change of, hey, cut from this time to this time towards the end. That doesn't affect any of the other timestamps. So complete revisions backwards. Now, once you've actually completed the revisions, it's really important you follow this next step. Otherwise, you're going to feel so stressed and it's just no use. You need to mentally log out of a video once it's handed in. I hear editors so many times complaining that revisions take them a long time, but it's important to distinguish takes a long time of work and takes a long time in terms of just delays of communication cycles. Oftentimes, revisions take a long time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, because you're just waiting for feedback. But people feel stressed about revisions because they're still mentally thinking that it's on their plate. The best thing that I've ever done for myself when it comes to just my mental well-being and not burning out, as soon as I give a video away, that video is no longer on my mental plateau. It literally doesn't exist until the person messages me back. Why? I could spend that time, that energy into other projects, into my outreach, into fixing my portfolio, into posting, creating a preview, so a post from that edit. There's so many things that I could do that would be actual revenue generating activities, and it would stress me out less than a video that I literally can't work on right now. So literally, as soon as you give in a video and finish the revisions, just mentally log out until the client actually reaches out and says, hey, it's approved or there's changes. The next step to actually getting a lot less revisions, but also being able to actually long-term teach a client that you don't like revisions without being a dick, is you want to allow space between you receiving revisions and then actually completing them. The reason being, if you find that, okay, a client's being a pain in the ass, they keep giving revisions and then they want it changed again, and it's like V4, V5, V6, V7, that might actually be your fault. Now, not saying that, I don't mean that in a mean way. I just say it because I had clients like this. I thought the client was just annoying or a bad person, but there were things I could change. In human psychology and human behavior, there is positive and negative reinforcement. For example, when you even train a dog, the dog receives a stimuli, you say sit, the dog sits, you give it a treat. So now the dog knows every time I hear sit and sit, I receive a treat, so I'm going to keep doing that. Same thing works with humans. Let's give it in a negative context. Let's say you do something, you stand up and you get slapped. And the next time you stand up, you get slapped again. The next time you stand up, you get slapped again. At some point, you're no longer going to stand up because you've been negatively reinforced for standing up. So you can use positive reinforcement to get someone to keep doing something, negative reinforcement to get someone to stop doing something. Whenever you give in a video, the person asks for a couple changes, and you do it straight away, you're basically positively reinforcing for them to give you a couple of changes. Now, is this me telling you to not do the revisions? No. All I'm saying is you need to not reinforce people just giving you changes on a whim where, oh, can you also change this thing? Or can you also do that as well? Because for you, it is a big process for you to go back in, render the entire video out, and be able to upload it and then give it. For them, it feels like it's just a quick thing. So instead, what I like to do is as soon as someone's given me revisions, I actually force them to wait in a nice way. All I say is, hey man, appreciate you. I'm reading through the notes now. I'm going to be working on this tomorrow morning. So if there's any other notes, feel free to add them. Also, could you just confirm once all of them are done? That way I know I can actually get started. When you get them to confirm that there's no more changes, once they've confirmed that and you do the changes, psychologically they no longer want to give more revisions because they were the ones who confirmed there's no more changes. So get them to verbally or in text agree and confirm, hey, that's all the revisions in there. Then you start on it. You'll realize that you're actually no longer positively reinforcing someone to just give random revisions, but instead you're positively reinforcing for them to give all the revisions up front. And number 6, the 6th strategy that I use, I probably should have covered this first because it's such a fundamental one. You want to mentally reframe revisions. You'll realize that there's a lot of people who thrive under stress. And there's others who, as soon as they're taking on more work than they can handle, they're getting burnt out, stressed out of their mind, and they lose clients, and they're losing their income. Why is it that there's some people that do absolutely amazing, and there's some people that just crumble under the pressure? They did studies on this, where they took two groups. One group was fed information and news and articles of stress being good for you, where it makes you more productive. And one group was fed information that told you stress is bad, stress makes you less productive, it increases risk of cancer, whatever. Both groups were taken into a task which was conventionally stressful. Which group do you think performed better? The group who was told stress is good, or the group that was told stress is bad? Obviously, the group that was told stress is good performed better on this stressful task, even though both groups were doing the same task. So your perception on stress will literally change how stress affects you. And the stress of revisions works the exact same way. If you have a negative belief around revisions, where it's like, oh, I don't want to do work for free, or it's so annoying, or why do they keep asking for random changes? If you have such a negative feeling towards revisions, of course they're going to feel like a pain in the ass. But if you see revisions as the best editors do, which is, hey, revisions are literally just free coaching, it's free training, those are the guys that do best. Because think about it like this. Imagine a creator has hired 10 editors. 9 of them have a negative belief around revision. So every time that the creator gives them changes with genuine desire to keep working with this person, they kind of snap back, or they do it and they kind of half-ass it. Versus the one guy that they've hired, who when they give revisions, the guy literally says, thank you, man, I really agree with the notes. And then makes the changes, not in like a bitchy way, but just in terms of like, hey, they're a supportive guy. If that person sees revisions as a good thing, that creator will now want to invest more into that person. Oftentimes when a creator gives a lot of revisions, it's not because they hate you, it's not because they hate the edit. They literally see you as a long-term investment vehicle. They see you as like, hey, it is worth training this person. I want to give them more videos. That's why I'm literally spending the time giving them notes, because I want the next one to be better. If they didn't care about you, if they didn't want to work on multiple videos, they would just give you as few notes as possible just to get it done. So in a weird way, like making these mental reframes like, hey, revisions are just free coaching. Hey, revisions are literally a sign that the client wants to keep me on. By mentally reframing it, revisions become a lot less stressful. And in a weird way, that means you're going to get revisions done faster. So that is how I've mentally reframed revisions, but also just tactically gotten revisions done faster. And this took me from sometimes, I still remember it was 281 revisions when I first started working with a client. It was a 10-minute video and I got 281 revisions. That scarred me. But it was after that I realized how much better I got. That made me mentally reframe it. And it's just all these tips. I learned it through experience, trial and error. That's basically why I make this content, just to help you hopefully go through it a little bit more easily. If you are an editor, you're trying to get more clients, you're trying to make more, I've gone through the journey just like you're going on. All my content is essentially just catered towards you. So like, feel free to convince me for what I'm worth. Take all the value you can. We do have a coaching program. If you want to book in a call below, if you don't feel ready for that, that's all good. If you want to just make some more money first from the free content, that's all good as well. So that is how you complete editing revisions faster. You can go watch this video here, which will teach you more about the productivity side. So how do you actually get the most bang for your hour? You can go watch that here.